As soon as I realize I'm going to be attacked, I hold my bag more firmly to my side. I grip his wrist, draw his arm forwards and upwards, and place my disengaged arm across his body. In this position, it's quite easy for me to dislocate his elbow. Although his other arm is free, it's quite impossible for him to strike me, as I'm merely...
If only it was that easy. Back in the 1930s, they obviously thought it was. And I suppose that many of us hope that faced with the same situation, we too could defend ourselves against an attacker.
I think I'm not really sure how I would react if I got attacked. I would like to think that I would be brave enough to defend myself in some way.
Yes, I would be brave enough. I think particularly if someone I love dearly was vulnerable. So if I was with maybe a small child, my own grandchild, I would be very much more likely to step in and defend my grandchild. But if it was me directly, yes, I would. I wouldn't passively accept being assaulted. Absolutely not. I'd resist. So yeah, I hope so anyway.
Or at least we'd give it a good go. Many people are, however, quite worried about what might happen to them if they did end up injuring someone in defending themselves. They're not sure how far they can go. And the law as it stands does say that you can use force to defend yourself, as long as it's necessary to use that force, and the force that you use is reasonable in the circumstances.
Why, it's not even safe for a chap to be out by himself at night anymore. And all he wanted was a light.
The law also allows you to make a preemptive strike. In other words, to attack first. Perhaps not quite like that. If you can convince a jury or magistrates or even the police that you believe that the person was going to attack you because of something they said.
You're dead, honey.
A gesture they made. Or the fact that you thought they were carrying a weapon. Then you can still use the defence, even if you have attacked first. One of the worries that lots of people have is, what does the law mean by reasonable force?
I'm not sure how much force you can use in defending yourself.
How do I know whether the force that I'm using is reasonable in the circumstances? The law often talks about a person's force being in proportion or proportionate to, and not excessive. So how does a jury or a group of magistrates work out whether the force that the person has used is in proportion and not excessive? One of the best ways to think about it is like a pair of scales. On the one side, we have the force used by the attacker, and on the other, we have the force used by the defendant in defending themselves. The jury, the magistrates will be asked to weigh up these two sides in order to decide whether the force that was used was in proportion. And the majority of times, that is the case. A person's punched and they punch back. There's a kick and a kick in retaliation. A person can even use a knife if they're being threatened by a knife and stab and potentially kill the attacker and still be able to use the defence of self-defence. It's everyone's nightmare. You're sleeping soundly in your bed at night when suddenly you're woken by a noise downstairs in the kitchen. You think it might be an intruder. You reach down under your bed to find that cricket bat, baseball bat, or in my case, a hockey stick, and bravely, you hope, go downstairs to confront that intruder. Now, the question that might be playing in the back of your mind is, how much force can I use?
I'm not sure that you could use more force if there was an intruder in the house. I don't know.
Again, I think it's exactly the same as if I was out in public. I'm not sure there are any laws that I would know where it would be different in your own property. It would be nice to think there are.
Quite interestingly, the law on what we now call householder cases was changed in 2013. And householders can now use disproportionate force in defending themselves. They can't use grossly disproportionate force, but they can use disproportionate force. So what do we mean by all these words? Proportionate, disproportionate, grossly disproportionate. One way of understanding it might be to think of a football analogy. In football, we expect players, when tackling each other, to use proportionate force, the amount of force required. And legal tackles, legal encounters between two players, will often involve proportionate force from both sides. Disproportionate force, force that's slightly excessive, will often result in a yellow card for a player. Whereas those players that use grossly disproportionate force, a two-footed tackle, a tackle from the back, violence against another player, they'll of course get the red card. And so what the law has done, the law has said, we recognise that people in dwellings where they live and other people live, they need to be given a little bit of latitude, a little bit of wiggle room, if you like, when it comes to how much force they can use. We're saying you can use disproportionate force, but make sure you don't go into grossly disproportionate force. So as I'm grabbing that hockey stick from under my bed, I can be thinking, the law is not going to punish me here if I get a little bit carried away. It will punish me, however, if I go over the top, and while that intruder's on the floor, I smash him 6 or 7 times in the head with the hockey stick. That would potentially be grossly disproportionate force. But if I hit him one more time than might be expected, or a couple more times while he's on the floor, simply because I'm in fear that he might get up, might attack me, might attack my children upstairs, then the law recognises that in those types of situations, it's okay to use disproportionate force. It's okay to use a little bit more excessive force, because not only are you protecting yourself here, you're protecting a household. So the law as it stands does allow us to defend ourselves from attackers and intruders. If you're out in a pub on a Saturday night, or you're walking home across the park, even if you're mistaken in your belief, you can still use force against another person to protect yourself. And if you're in your own home and an intruder comes into the home, not only can you use reasonable force in those situations, you can even use disproportionate force to protect yourself.
Now I'm going to give him a real thrill. I'm gripped in the same manner as before, the tramp not having learned his lesson. This time I draw his body upwards till it's in the form of a hoop. I lie gently on the floor, placing one foot in his tummy. The answer's in the infirmary.